everybody. Welcome back to a Monday edition of Wisconsin Weather Experts. It's beautiful here right now, but there is a lot of activity weather-wise, of course, across the U.S., from West Coast to New England states, between heavy rain and snow. Here locally, we're looking at a chance for some wintry mix and rain tomorrow morning, so we just need to enjoy the calm while we have it.
Yes, and we are very lucky that we have a decent amount of calm weather from the weekend, even into the start of this week, because areas on the West Coast were not so lucky. They were dealing with an atmospheric river, and this is video of California where they've been dealing with the heavy rain, which led to significant flooding, mudslides, multiple car rescues, and of course you can see in this video that the San Fernando Valley turned into rivers near the 5 freeway. It did leave some cars stranded. Crews had to rescue one man after he was swept away for more than a mile before he was able to climb on a ledge and be lifted to safety.
Oh, hard images to see.
It's rough.
And firefighter crews were kept busy in California rescuing another man who was stranded on a ledge above a channel in Buena Park in Orange County. So the man was swept more than a mile downstream before being able to climb aboard the ledge. Crews used a truck's ladder to lower a rescuer to the man and lift him to safety. He is expected to be okay. So thankful for that.
Yeah, we're thankful. And he wasn't the only one that was rescued in some of those waters there. I was just telling Stephanie that there was other video of a man who was stuck in the waters with his 2 dogs, and unfortunately they weren't able to rescue both. One of the dogs slipped out of the life jackets, and people did lose their lives in this event. So we're continuing to track the latest in California, but it wasn't just the local roads that were impacted.
Yeah, actually one of the state parks in Southern California was hit especially hard. Footage shows widespread flooding throughout the park on Saturday. Look at that. Man. As of course that system continued to bring torrential rainfall to areas that, remember, have burn scars. There's no way where for this water to go. It's not absorbed into that clay. Everything is, essentially gone. But unfortunately, as Lisa mentioned, we are learning that 3 people died in Central and Northern California as the storm made its way down the coast. The National Weather Service still have flood headlines in place across many southern portions of the state as rain continues, not just today, but also tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think you're going to break down more on the impacts that California is dealing with coming up. But it wasn't just the heavy rain. You mentioned the scars, the leftover debris from some of the fires. And California, unfortunately, is still dealing with fires as we speak. They've been dealing with, again, some of the impacts that has been lingering, not only from rain, but fires like this. This is Mammoth Lake, where crews are trying to make progress on the wildfire burning in the High Sierra, the Pack Fire. It has burned 3,000 acres and is currently only 56% contained. The blaze is forcing evacuations, thousands of acres that are continuing to burn in Mono County, California. At least 15 homes, sheds, or other structures have been damaged. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. And in another area, we are going to see impacts of fires, but something maybe you haven't heard of. In St. James Parish, Louisiana, smoke from the local fires mixed with dense fog, creating something called super fog on Friday. Now, of course, we know visibility is really low with some of the wildfire smoke. Adding fog on top of it, hence the super fog effect. Super fog was reported Friday morning, with thick fog remaining in place for portions of the weekend. Now, due to this extremely low visibility, local officials did shut down portions of the interstate there. Super fog again occurs when wildfire smoke from nearby fires is trapped near the Earth's surface and it combines with regular fog. This enhances the reduced visibility effect. Now, November is one of the foggiest months for the Gulf Coast area, with portions of Louisiana averaging about 30 to 40 days of heavy fog. I cannot even imagine going through that. And I'm glad the officials at least close it down, because for morning commute hours, typically when we see our fog in the mornings and nights, that could have led to pileups. And there's been many events across the U.S. where those pileups, again, lead to fatalities. So fog is another one we have to be very cautious of when you're heading out the door driving.
I'm not sure I've even really thought about the combination of
I haven't
wildfire
either,
smoke
to
and
be
fog.
quite honest. So when they said super fog, I'm like, I got to think about this.
Interesting.
And kind of dig into what the details are. So we're lucky they're not dealing with it now, but the more we know, especially if we have times like this in the year when fog is more prevalent, if we see some wildfires with that, that's where we're going to get those impacts combined.
Very interesting stuff. Well, why don't we break down our regional weather now as we look across the country. We've got a system not too far from us, but really watching the West Coast and those New England states too, where there is still a low pressure system, as well as some lake effect snow, bringing in plenty of accumulation to places like New York, Pennsylvania, all the way up into Maine. High pressure system that's been keeping most of Wisconsin dry and sunny the last couple of days on into this morning, now sinking its way towards the southeast. So there is another one actually up north. But as that continues to move eastward, it's going to allow this next system across the central United States to move in our direction. And of course, you can still see the series of cold fronts and low pressure systems bringing rain to parts of the West Coast, especially parts of Southern California. Now, making our way, I should say, to New England states, you can see a decent amount of snow still falling. Yes, there is still some lake effect happening at the moment too. It looks like there's just one small area now within New York dealing with lake effect snow and winter weather advisories. Earlier, there were a handful of communities still under winter storm warnings and more under advisories, but those have since been allowed to expire. But kind of a messy weekend for some New England states. And then you can also see decent amount of areas too out west, including higher elevations, primarily higher elevations in California, as well as states towards the east dealing with more snow, more winter storm warnings, as well as winter weather advisories. But those are the spots that want the snow. Remember, winter tourism, that's where everybody travels. You can still see some flooding headlines too across parts of California, coastal flooding, flood advisories still north of LA and in that region where they've seen inches and inches worth of rainfall over the last couple of days. Remember this atmospheric river that we've been talking about. You know, the rain started late last week and it's still going to continue today and even into a good chunk of Tuesday. So it's not quite done in parts of Southern California. Bringing you back closer to home, you can see there is a little bit of mixed precip showing up on satellite and radar out towards the west. Most of this is not actually touching the ground, and if it is, it's more so just some sprinkles. The rest of us north and east still enjoying the sun. Now, as we see these high pressure systems eroding and moving out towards the east, we'll start to see the cloud cover building in this afternoon with more precip development out towards the west. So that's going to start out west into Minnesota, but the rain will likely move into our area late tonight after 10, 11 p.m. But then we have the chance for it, especially north of Milwaukee, to then switch over to more of a wintry mix and slushy snow. So central parts, kind of a narrow band of central parts of Wisconsin, could end up seeing a little bit of slushy accumulation throughout tomorrow morning. Most of the precip will either change over to rain or completely end throughout your mid to late afternoon hours. And then we're looking at more of a calmer Wednesday as yet another high pressure builds its way in. But again, a closer look at what we've got ahead. First and foremost, increasing cloud cover throughout the afternoon. Then notice overnight, we start to see some rain moving in, switching over to some wintry mix in some of our northern communities, Green Bay, Wausau, Eau Claire, La Crosse, and then continuing into tomorrow morning. So do know tomorrow morning's commute in central portions of Wisconsin could end up being just a little slushy, maybe a little slick in spots. So allow some extra travel time. The good news is that your evening commute should be a whole lot better as we see all of that precip wind down throughout the afternoon. Now, models vary a little bit, but there is the chance for some snowfall accumulation, again, in central parts of our state, and then especially out towards the west. A couple inches worth of slushy snow, not out of the question. I think immediately, you know, if you're thinking Milwaukee's TV viewing area, we're watching Fond du Lac, Sheboygan counties for a little bit of slush. But then I do think as you get closer to Green Bay, and especially out towards the west, we may end up having some stronger bands set up with some slightly higher snowfall totals. So again, just watch out for tomorrow morning's commute as a lot of this is going to fall early tomorrow morning into maybe your midday hours. Now, quick check of temperatures. Now, high temperatures across the state today going to be a little cooler, only in the 30s and 40s. You'll notice overnight tonight, though, how we kind of hold steady down towards the south, but with this system still in the area for Tuesday, temperatures are also going to be on the cooler side. So we're looking at a pretty average week ahead, aside from a slight dip tomorrow by Tuesday, or I should say Thursday, excuse me, we're back to some low 50s with a chance for rain, and then temperatures level out in the upper 40s heading on into the weekend.
Well, Steph, it's really great to hear about our forecast because as we're stepping further into winter, it is Winter Weather Awareness Week. And we're going to kick it off with Chief Meteorologist Tom Walks explaining more about our winter forecast with different types of precipitation, how they form, and when we can get what.
Well, sometimes we show weather maps on TV that look like this, pretty colorful, right? Where we have the blue, which denotes snow, but then we have the pink area, which denotes mixed precipitation. But what does that really mean? That can mean a whole lot of different things, right? From sleet to freezing rain. So let's break down what this mixed precipitation really means. So as we take a look at these different types of wintry precipitation, we have to look at what's going on not just here at the surface, but what's going on above us, especially in terms of temperatures. So all precipitation starts out as snow, way up high. But depending on what happens with the temperatures just above us, the temperatures can warm, and that can cause that precipitation to melt, which in turn causes mixed precipitation. So we'll start here with rain. Very simply, you have cold air where it starts out as snow, and then the air warms up. So that snow melts into rain. That's pretty easy to understand, right? But it gets a little more complicated when you talk about freezing rain. Now, same type of a process, right? You have the cold air higher up, so it starts out as snow. Now it melts in that warmer air into rain, just like in the rain example, but wait a minute. Then there's some cold air closer to the Earth's surface. But that cold air is not deep enough to cause that liquid water to turn back to ice before it hits the ground. So we call this freezing rain. What really happens here? Well, this is where it's just like normal rain. It falls as liquid, right? But it doesn't freeze until it makes contact with something that is below freezing. And that is key with freezing rain. So it's falling as liquid water, but then it hits a tree branch. It hits a car. It hits the pavement, something, maybe a power line that's below freezing. And as soon as the water hits that surface that's below freezing, boom, it turns to ice. So it falls as liquid, but then it turns to ice because of that narrow layer of cold air. Well, now we have sleet. That is a little bit different. And again, note the temperature profile here, also very different. So it starts out as snow. The warm layer here, though, with sleet is a lot narrower. So it melts into liquid, just like rain does, right? So it turns to rain. But note the difference. See how the cold air with sleet is thicker towards the surface and it goes higher up? So because that cold layer is thicker, the rain is able to freeze back to ice. So what is sleet? Sleet is ice pellets. So it goes from liquid and it has enough time as it's falling to turn into ice pellets and kind of pings as it hits the ground. So again, freezing rain is liquid water that freezes on contact when it hits the ground. Sleet falls as ice pellets. And finally, we have snow. That's really a very simple one because the entire column of air is cold. So it never has time to melt. It just simply stays all as snow. So again, very interesting because of the temperature profile here. So let's go back again and talk about this, that sleet is ice pellets. It's where the snow melts, but then it has time to refreeze once again. Freezing rain, and the freezing rain aspect can be confusing because sometimes you can confuse that with sleet. Freezing rain is where the snow melts into rain, but it doesn't have time to refreeze into ice pellets until it hits a surface that is below freezing. Then it turns back to ice. Meanwhile, grapple, we haven't talked about this one. Grapple, they're like soft snow pellets. Sometimes we'll see that happening during the winter months as well. And this is where you have liquid water higher up. It's actually called supercooled water when temperatures are below freezing, but you can actually still get liquid water at times when temperatures are below freezing. And that liquid water freezes on snow, and that in turn causes those soft snow pellets. So Wintry precipitation. It can be certainly very interesting, but there are distinct differences. Bottom line, with any of this wintry precipitation, they can all lead to slick roads. Freezing rain in particular, because of that icing, because it ices up, let's say, on power lines and things like that. When you get freezing rain combined with the wind, that's when we really start to worry more so about power outages. Well, hey, do you have a question for us on Wisconsin Weather Experts? Scan this QR code with your phone, and you can submit a weather question for us, and we'll talk about it right here on Wisconsin Weather Experts. Again, we want to hear from you. We love being able to talk all about the science and all about the weather. So please submit your weather question. We would love to give you a shout out and answer your weather questions right here on Wisconsin Weather Experts.
Welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts. We have been talking a lot about, again, impacts across the entire country and, of course, winter weather. Now, it is officially Winter Weather Awareness Week, and we're going to get into a little bit of the winter weather awareness aspect of it each and every day. Tom, of course, started us off talking about the types of winter precipitation, but we're going to break things down a little bit further. We're going to talk about the winter headlines, because everyone likes to know, when are we going to potentially be added to a watch, warning, advisory, so forth. It's all depending on the timeline. So about 4 to 7 days out, we will start looking at trends in the models. And typically, the National Weather Service can come out with these outlooks. Now, outlooks are also something that we will read in discussions every day, but overall, it just talks about the potential of seeing some sort of winter forecast in the week ahead. 1 to 3 days out, that's when we start to narrow things down a little more so. Is there probability of a watch being issued, or are we likely not going to have any headlines because the trends of winter snow has gone away? If we are looking at having a watch issued 1 to 3 days out, of course, we are still several days out. So then we have to get closer to the timeline of that event happening. About 24 hours ahead of an event coming in, we can have one of 3 things issued. We could be upgraded to a warning, we could be put into a advisory, or we might have no headlines at all. So again, it's all about the timing of the event leading up to it. Of course, we know more details the further we get to the event. The further out we are still uncertain, and we're trying to look into some information of if it's possible or not. Now, in terms of a winter storm, we have a watch versus a warning. Now, a watch, you want to be prepared. That means a longer duration out from the event. Dangerous weather is possible within 36 to 48 hours. A warning is where you have to take action. We're talking about dangerous weather that's expected, not just possible, but expected within a shorter amount of time, 12 to 36 hours out. Both a watch and warning can mean impacts for travel, but the difference is for a watch, possible issues will be considered for travel versus a warning. We are looking to have considerable travel problems expected. Either way, if we have one of these in the forecast, you just want to be prepared. And again, the closer we get to an event, stay tuned with us. We'll be tracking things closely where you might need to take action.
All really good terminology to remember heading into our winter weather months. And I know it feels a lot more like, of course, the change of the seasons because it's getting darker earlier and earlier. People, of course, complaining that it makes them tired, right? Well, seasonal depression is real, but how can we beat this? Fox 6's Bria Jones talked with a life coach, Dr. Carolyn Anderson, to talk about it.
I want to know, everybody's talking about it's getting darker earlier and earlier. It's making some people sad. It's making them tired. Let's talk about seasonal depression and how to beat it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, it is a real thing. It happens not just in the fall season, but definitely like now. And the reason for that is because of the lack of sunlight. So we naturally need the sunlight in order to fuel our energy and also to give us strength. And so what happens though, when we have the shorter sunlight, that literally affects our mental state. It affects our emotional well-being, and that lack of it do change into a state of depression where some people just can't break out of it. Not everyone know how to just pop up in the crisp air and also just not having the penetration of sunlight. So yeah, it is a real thing. And it happens in the Midwest more than in the East Coast or in the West Coast. So in the Midwest, it's very prone to have a seasonal affective disorder.
And Dr. Carolyn,
and or depression.
Something that you mentioned to me when we met for another interview, we were talking about the significance of tackling things with your mind first. What could be maybe your mindset to help you overcome any uneasy feelings you may be having right now?
Absolutely. So the mind controls the brain controls the body. So one of the things to do in the morning, 3 little things, or maybe you can turn it into 6 little things, is to do affirmations. So you have to train your mind to direct your day. And so writing down, today would be a good day. Today I will not be affected by the weather. Today I am happy. Today I feel great. I feel strong. So you have to use the mind to direct the focus of what you want the day to be. And that has to be like first thing you do in the morning, sometimes before the coffee or the hot tea. So guiding your space and writing down what the day is going to be like is a visualization that we use in our private practice to help with clients and patients who are suffering from that low level of energy. So we also don't sometimes refer to it as depression, because that word alone just sounds depressing.
Yeah.
So we just say it's just an energy. Your energy is low, and we need to boost that. So boosting that requires just a few directive thoughts and writing those things down and having those little sticky notes all around the house or the workplace to remind you that this is just a season and it will pass.
We go through this every single year, but still, it's a real thing, as you just heard. It's so hard to get through the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's really hard. I was just telling you that I've been going to bed at like 6 p.m. because it's dark and my body's like, all right, time to shut down, and it's hard. And in the office, this is Chief Meteorologist Rob Haswell's, but if I could turn it on, if it was plugged in, it would work. But pretty much they have these little like light sensors, and I think you've used them before.
I do, yes.
Where there's different brightness settings, and it can be something as simple as just sitting on your desk, and it adds that kind of light to your eyes, to your body, so it feels like sunlight. It's an artificial version of sunlight that, of course, isn't going to harm you. But during the winter months, this can be really handy.
Yeah, especially on cloudy days, too. Just a little boost of fake sunshine's okay. All right, we have just a little bit more coming up on Wisconsin Weather Experts. Stay with us.
welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts. We are going to stick on the theme with the lack of daylight that we are having. Here's some good news, though. As we are continuing, at least the next couple weeks, I guess this is the bad news here, we're still going to have those sunrises later, sunsets earlier. However, on December 21st, the winter solstice arrives, and that means that on the 22nd, we are actually looking at the start of gaining at least 4 seconds of daylight each day. And again, that's a big thing. It will extend into a minute more, 2 minutes more, but we are just heading into that down point before things will go up again.
It's always good to look ahead at the good news. That helps us get through some of these darker or earlier sunsets. Thanks for staying with us again on another episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts. We'll see you right back here tomorrow at noon.